Educational Communications and this station present Environmental Directions with Nancy Pearlman. On this series, we explore the effects of human influence on the Earth's ecosystems and discuss solutions to environmental problems which affect the quality of life on this planet. Environmental Directions gives you the kind of information you need to help you participate in decisions impacting your community, the nation, and the world. Now, here's your host, Nancy Pearlman.
Hello. For the next half hour, we are going to be talking about African safaris and humanitarian, educational, and conservation initiatives in Africa with my guest, Alan Feldstein. He is owner and founder of Infinite Safari Adventures. He's a former attorney in Los Angeles in entertainment and marketing. He is a member of the Adventurers Club of Los Angeles and the International Explorers Club. He's both a nature photographer and author who has written the best African safari tips from an obsessive planner. He is also a member of the board of directors of the Cheetah Conservation Fund, Saving the Survivors, and the Bird School Project. And with his wife, he co-founded the Infinite Safari Foundation. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Both you and I have fallen in love with the people and wildlife of Africa. You went to Africa, and it basically, you say, changed your life. You summited the highest peak in Africa, Mount Kilimanjaro, at over 19,000 feet. You tracked chimps in the Mahali Mountains. You were one of the first people to kayak off the coast of Tanzania. What attracted you the most to this area?
Well, it's very funny. Nothing attracted me to this. I happen to have been involved as a lawyer on a case that had me rack up 400,000 frequent flyer miles. And I said to my wife, we can go anywhere in the world. Where do you want to go? And she said, I've always wanted to go on a safari in Africa. And little did she know how that would change our lives, because on the very first day I saw giraffes, and as she says, they had me at hello. But more importantly, and you understand this having been over there, as my wife said, we went for the wildlife, but we came back for the people. We just had such a great time with everyone, and everybody is so kind, so generous, so lovely that we couldn't stay away.
And we know how important it is for travelers, tourists, to go and enjoy the area of particularly East Africa, which you have specialized in, even though cheetahs are down in Namibia and Southern Africa. But you found that the wildlife safaris encourage travelers to be responsible to help save the wildlife and give the community members employment.
That's correct. People don't understand that tourism is usually the number 1, 2, or 3 biggest contributor to the economy in each of the African countries in Eastern and Southern Africa. I tell my clients, when you meet somebody at one of the lodges or camps we send you to, you're not employing them, you're supporting them, their family, and probably their village as well. And that's why it's so important. And as you talk about conservation, you're absolutely correct, because you can't really appreciate how important it is until you actually get to see it in person. And that's why I love sending people over there.
You basically decided law wasn't as exciting and beautiful as seeing the wildlife and enjoying a different environment. And you took up nature photography to the point where your work has appeared in Los Angeles Times, Wavelength Magazine, and paddling.net calendar. Taking pictures of wildlife is really rather easy on safaris. You can get so close to them if you stay in the various vans and jeeps that travel the area.
You're correct. It's funny. When I first went to Africa on my very first trip, I brought along a camera, 50 rolls of film, lead-lined bag, and now people go with their iPhones and get incredible photographs. But people who are avid photographers, there's no better place to take pictures. The light in Africa is fantastic. The vast landscapes with animals, it's almost impossible not to come back with some incredible shots that you will love and appreciate forever.
So you advocate shooting, but with a camera. Leave the animal alive. You don't want people going hunting and killing them.
No, you're absolutely right. As people say, do you do hunting safaris? I say, no, the only thing we shoot are your cameras. And that's a whole nother discussion as far as the pros and cons, because the original great white hunters back in the 20s and 30s were the original conservationists. But unfortunately today, because of human-wildlife conflict, we need as all the animals out there wild as possible, and we don't need any trophy hunting at this stage of the game.
It is strange because hunters want to claim, well, they care about the animals because they basically want to kill them, and therefore they call themselves conservationists. But times have changed because the animals have limited space. Populations grow. Land set aside for the animals is few and far between. How many national parks and sanctuaries do you visit on your safaris?
It depends on the safari that you go on. But for example, one of the places that I love, and the first place that I went to, was Tanzania, and 30% of the country is set aside for national parks, which is wonderful. But at the same time, yes, the biggest problem today facing wildlife is human-wildlife conflict. As we, as humans, overpopulate the planet, there's less and less space for the animals. Animals that need hundreds of miles to roam no longer have that ability to do that because of farms popping up and dotting. And one of the biggest problems for elephants is that they get into crops and they destroy crops, and the farmers get very upset, and then they want to kill the elephants for that. Or lions who are attacking livestock because that's where the prey is. And then the farmers who have cattle want to kill the lions. And so one of the other things that's so important there is not only educating people who go on safari, but using the revenue that they generate to help do educational and anti-poaching initiatives over there, to have the people who have to deal with this on a daily basis also not be killing animals as well.
The local people have to deal with the wildlife, and that is a problem for them with their crops. I know here, even in the city of Los Angeles, I'm appalled when I read on the internet about neighbors who want to kill the coyotes who are roaming around, who have been able to survive in the city. Why don't they keep the domestic cats and dogs inside and they don't have to worry?
Exactly. That's one of the things I think that really it drives home when people go on safari, is coming to the realization that we are not the only ones that live on this planet, and we all must find a way to live together. And that means not only people living together, which we surely need, but people living with wildlife.
But one of the problems of some wildlife is that foreigners like to have certain body parts. Ivory has always been a challenge because other people in other countries want that ivory. Sometimes traditional medicine say some animal part is healthy for them when it doesn't have any special property. Trying to change cultural attitudes to make sure that the animals aren't killed for these parts. I know that down in South Africa, some of the wildlife sanctuaries that are privately run have literally cut off the rhino's horn, which doesn't hurt them, but just to keep the rhino alive, because then the horn's not there for somebody to poach and kill the animal and send the horn elsewhere.
Yes, it's very interesting. I take groups over to South Africa, to a place where we sedate rhinos. We take DNA samples, blood samples, and we also put microchips in the horns and under the skin of the rhino as well. And it's part of an anti-poaching initiative. That's what Saving the Survivors, which I'm on the board, is all about. It is devastating, particularly with rhino poaching. And what's very interesting, Nancy, is that it used to be more about alternative medicine and with rhino horns, as Johan, our executive director, says, it's more about wealth than health. In other words, it's now become a status symbol to have rhino horn, which is nothing more than made of the same thing as your fingernails are made out of. It is a problem, but again, going over there, going on safari, contributing to the economy, being present does help this problem, because during COVID there was lots of poaching because there was nobody out there except the poachers. Now there are tourists out there. Poachers have to be more careful. That is a big help, not only from a visibility standpoint, but from a financial standpoint.
The Maasai people traditionally have herds in the wildlife areas of the Serengeti and the Masai Mara, both in Tanzania and in Kenya, two national parks in two different countries that are actually connected. And you have actually worked with some of those local people in their anti-poaching work?
Yes, I'm very proud of this. So way back when I was first starting my company, I was introduced to a young man, Patrick Ole Papatiti, who had gone to school and at age 12 had to drop out because his father died and he needed to take care of his family. In his 20s, he went back, finished junior high school. When I met him, he was just finishing high school and his dream was to go to college. I was so impressed by him. I said, if you want to go to college, you're going to college. And I funded his college education. He got a Bachelor of Arts in Business and an MBA as well. And Patrick now runs an anti-poaching unit in Amboseli, Kenya, which I know you're familiar with.
Beautiful place. I saw a wild elephant giving birth in Amboseli.
Wow.
Very rare.
So Patrick, he does several things. One is educate the local community about if an elephant gets in your crop or a lion kills your cattle, don't kill them. We will figure out solutions. I'm very impressed. Patrick put together a group of women called the Young Lionesses, and they're rangers. I will tell you, they can find out more information in a local village in 5 minutes than a male ranger can in 5 months. They walk in, talk to the women to woman, and learn so much about what's going on as far as bushmeat poaching or problems and things of that sort. So I work very closely with them down there.
Women are wonderful rangers, and I'm glad that there are a lot of programs to help them as well as the men. You're on the board of directors of Saving the Survivors. Who are the survivors? How many different animals are they?
The Saving the Survivors is an incredible organization that is involved in saving rhinos, and Johan Murray, who is the head of it, is a veterinarian who is incredible because unfortunately and sadly, sometimes poachers will hack off the horn of a rhino and the rhino will survive and is basically mutilated. And Johan has literally, like a plastic surgeon, rebuilt the faces of rhinos. They are then given a life. They're allowed to breed, which produces more rhinos, which is important. It's really quite an incredible thing to see and witness. I've met Seha, who is one of the rhinos he saved. His story started out so tragically, and now Seha has a great life as a male rhino in South Africa.
I wish we had time to talk about all the incredible animals to see. I always love looking at the hippopotamus, seeing them in the rivers. Of course, you have to be careful about the crocodiles in the rivers if you go swimming. How many species of animals are there? Birds, reptiles, mammals?
Well, I'm sitting at my desk as you and I are talking, and I've just picked up a copy of the Field Guide to African Wildlife, and I can tell you that it is almost 1,000 pages long. So there's a lot of wildlife. But people say, what will I see out there? Elephants, giraffes, zebras, hippos, lions, leopards, cheetahs, impala, bushbucks, wildebeest. One of the other interesting things is people really get into the beautiful birds that they didn't think they would be into. But seeing the lilac-breasted rollers or the pink flamingos is really wonderful to see as well.
You have so many projects helping people and wildlife in Africa. You lead incredible ecotourism safaris. I look forward to talking more about that with my guest, Alan Feldstein, owner and founder of Infinite Safari Adventures, when we return in a moment.
Environmental Directions with Nancy Pearlman continues with further discussion of the world's critical ecological issues. For more information, you may call 310-559-9160 or go to www.ecoprojects.org. Now, here's Nancy.
I'm speaking with Alan Feldstein, owner and founder of Infinite Safari Adventures, and author of The Best African Safari, Tips from an Obsessive Planner. What's the best tip that you have?
Oh, that's like asking what my favorite child is. One of the things that I think is unique about Infinite Safari Adventures is we love interviewing our clients before they decide where to go on safari to find out what their interests are. Everybody is interested in seeing wildlife. life. And as I tell them, that's the easy part. But what else are you interested in? There are so many things to do in Africa. So, for example, if you're into food and wine, well, then we're going to go to South Africa because we can go down to the wine country outside of Cape Town. Cape Town itself is a great food capital of the world. If you're into culture and want to visit the Maasai, then we're going to go to Kenya or Tanzania. If you want to track gorillas, primates are your thing, then we're going to go to Uganda or Rwanda. If you're a scuba diver, we can go to Zanzibar or Mozambique. So it really depends on what you want to do. We do only custom itineraries that are created and curated for our clients. As I say, do what's best for you, not what's easiest for us to do.
That's so important that the trip be organized according to the traveler's interests, because otherwise they might be disappointed that they're not getting what they want. I know for me, about a decade ago, I decided while I still could, I wanted to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. That is over 19,336 feet, and it's quite an adventure. You have to plan about 6 days. Fortunately, you've got porters to carry your gear, and it helps them. It costs almost nothing, and they fix delicious food. It's not like backpacking in the California Sierras where you're eating dehydrated food. They carry up incredible things. You stay in huts if you want, or tents with solar power, so you can charge your batteries for your cameras and have these wonderful experiences. What saddens me most, though, is that when I saw Mount Kilimanjaro from the highway in 1996, I saw a lot of glaciers. I stopped at the same spot in 2013, and half the glaciers are gone.
Yes, I climbed Kilimanjaro, and I summited on August 30th of 2005, and it was truly one of the great adventures and experiences of my life. But yes, we're dealing with climate change, and we're dealing with problems. 2 years ago, I helped feed 1,500 Maasai in the Amboseli area because the drought was so severe that people were starving. This year, people lost their homes because of torrential flooding of heavy rains that came down. There's all new challenges that are coming by way of climate change, and my philosophy is we just keep persevering and doing what we can to help as much as we can.
In addition to sitting at the safari camps or going on game drives, one can have adventures, go hiking, go kayaking, and even hot air ballooning.
You can hot air balloon, you can raft the Zambezi River, you can canoe the rivers, you can go bungee jumping off the bridge at Victoria Falls, you can see Victoria Falls, you can go scuba diving, you can climb Mount Kilimanjaro. The list is pretty endless.
You have focused on your nature photography, your safari, ecotourism adventures in parts of Africa. But yet, isn't that possible everywhere in the world that we have to save land and space for the local wildlife and to help the local communities, whether or not it's in Africa, Asia, South America, the United States, or Europe?
Well, there's certainly needs everywhere, but there is no other place in the world like Africa and the wildlife that is out there. One of the things that I jokingly say is people always say, someday I want to go to Africa, and my tagline is, someday is now. And I do strongly believe that. I tell people, you can go to Rome, great museums, great food. You can go to Paris, great museums, great food. You can go to London, great museums, probably great food. There's no place like Africa anywhere else in the world. And that's why I think it's so important that people visit.
And there's great food, great culture, great animals, and the museum is really nature, the wild. It doesn't have to be in a building.
Perfect. That is well said. Exactly right. It really is sort of your view of seeing things that you can't see anywhere else in the world.
One of those places that you can't see anywhere else in the world is where Homo sapiens was discovered, in Olduvai Gorge.
That is very true, yes. As well as Lucy, whose bones were found in Ethiopia.
Your work is really incredible because you don't just care about taking people on a trip. You care about the people, the wildlife, and you've gotten involved. You are on the board of directors of the Cheetah Conservation Fund. Lori Marker has done an incredible job with the Cheetah Conservation Fund, created a program to create guard dogs so that the cheetah weren't eating the local cattle and that the local ranchers didn't kill the cheetah to protect their animals. What is going on now in saving the cheetah?
I'm really glad you raised that issue because to me it is a great illustration of how to solve problems like this. There were a lot of cheetahs in Namibia, still more cheetahs in Namibia probably than anywhere else in the world. Cheetahs would kill livestock, farmers would kill cheetahs. And our executive director, Lori Marker, used to go to the ranchers and say, hey, you got to stop killing the cheetahs. And the ranchers would say, well, tell the cheetahs to stop killing our livestock. That's a fair point. And that's when research was done, and we found a breed of dog called the Anatolian Shepherd from Turkey who can withstand high heat, has a loud bark, and we now breed them. And we have a 2-year waiting list now giving puppies to farmers who those dogs bond with their herds. They go out with the herds, and if they sense a predator, they have a very loud bark which scares the cheetah away. Cheetahs don't kill livestock, farmers don't kill cheetahs, and it's a fantastic solution. But you also asked, what else are we doing? Well, last year we were very excited. People don't know, but cheetahs used to exist in India. 75 years ago, they were decimated. Last year we flew 8 cheetahs on a 747 to India, and now there are cheetahs in India. We're hoping that they will take root there and breed and run wild and free and populate the Indian forests again, and there will be cheetahs back in India. So these are the kinds of creative solutions that we have to deal with in trying to save wildlife.
That's wonderful to hear about that reintroduction. You are also active with the Bird School Project. What birds are you talking about? Do the birds need any kind of special conservation work?
No, actually it's very funny. The Bird School Project is the only project that I'm involved in that's in the United States. It was actually founded by my son and his best friend, and it's to educate kids about nature and wildlife. Children today are so plugged into their electronics that they sort of forget the world around them. And so what they do is go to schools, give kids binoculars, take them out on wildlife walks and teach them how to identify birds, how to spot birds and stuff. And so I'm very proud of that and my son. And I think part of the reason he did stuff like this is because I took him to Africa in 2008. And I think it had a profound effect on him and his sister on wanting to be involved. In fact, my daughter, the following year after that trip, moved to Nairobi for several months to help Somali refugee girls who were fleeing into Nairobi from Somalia to set up a safe house and give them a business to run and do so that they could be self-sufficient.
What I like is that you run safaris, which is an African term basically for a trip, and you have focused on East Africa, Southern Africa, but there are 53 plus countries in Africa, and everywhere they have wildlife and people that need preservation, help, humanitarian work. I really am pleased that you have co-founded with your wife Diane Hathman the Infinite Safari Foundation. Those projects are primarily to do the humanitarian, educational, and conservation initiatives in Africa?
Yes. One of the things that we're very proud of is giving back, and I think it's one of the things that sets Infinite Safari Adventures apart from a lot of other companies. When people book with us, we make a donation in their name, a portion of the cost of the safari that they're paying for, to our foundation, and then we distribute those funds to humanitarian, education, and conservation initiatives every year. This past year, we sent a Kenyan girl to Butte School so she can have a career instead of being a teenage bride. We supported a theater company in Zambia that goes to different villages and puts on short plays to teach the local community about AIDS prevention or human-wildlife conflict and that sort of thing. We bought a laptop and an anesthesia machine for a veterinarian that is sort of a one-person operation in South Luangwa National Park. We, of course, donated to Saving the Survivors and the Cheetah Conservation Fund and supporting Patrick and his rangers. So we're very proud of the work that we do there, and we love to give back.
At the very beginning of our interview, you mentioned the giraffes, and I must say that when I saw them in the wild for the first time, it was amazing with their long necks eating at the top of the trees. That experience has to be seen in the wild wild, because in the zoos, they're fences, and it looks totally different, and you don't feel the height and the beauty of these animals in the wild. But I'm a cat lover, and I must say that the lions, the cheetahs, the leopards, all the cats are incredible to look at and see. I'm pleased that the governments have finally realized that the safari companies can't circle the lions too closely, which they used to do, and then the lions couldn't go hunt, but that they can be at a distance and still enjoy watching the animals. Are the governments still trying to protect the animals in that way?
You've hit upon one of the great discussion points that's been going on for, I'd say, the last year or so, because after COVID, there was a lot of pent-up demand for people to go to Africa and go on safari. And because of that, the government started seeing an incredible increase in revenue, which they were happy about. And they were granting a lot of permissions to build camps and lodges out there. So it can create a problem of being too many vehicles out there. And how do you prevent that problem? And there's several initiatives that are going on, but really, to me, the best way to avoid those problems is to choose wisely your company and their guides. If you look my company up on TripAdvisor, you'll see how wonderful my guides are and how my clients love my guides, because they know how to avoid crowds. They know how to position the vehicles for the best photographs. They're incredible on how to spot wildlife that you could never see, and they go, oh yeah, there's a cheetah over there. And you'll look and look and look, and you can't see it, and then sure enough, 10 minutes later, as you drive closer, there's a cheetah. So I think that's one of the best ways to prevent that problem. And the guides do all work together now to try and avoid that. They'll say, okay, you've had your 5-minute turn, let's let another vehicle have a go at it.
When I can't get to Africa, I love going to the San Jacinto Mountains here in Southern California, and I enjoy seeing the squirrels, the raccoons, the deer, the coyotes, the bobcats, but we have mountain lions there, and I've never seen one in the wild. And in Africa, most of the animals are very visible and can be found easily, whether or not it's the wildebeest, whether or not it's the elephant, the cats, the other animals. Which one would you really like to see that's so hard to get that experience?
Well, I've been very fortunate, and in the over 24 years that I've been going to Africa, I've gotten to see some amazing things and amazing experiences and amazing interactions. The last time I was over there, I saw a python, believe it or not, swallow an impala whole. It took 3 hours to do that. But I would say one of the animals I have yet to see is a pangolin. And I would love to see a pangolin, which are also very endangered. I'm never tired of seeing, like you, seeing lions and leopards and cheetahs out there in the wild. They're just such beautiful animals. It's just amazing to see it. And yes, it is a completely different experience than seeing one in a zoo.
I'm ready to go see all the animals that are out there that we can see, and I'm so pleased that you have shared your experiences and your good work with us. If somebody wants to contact you and talk about a trip to Africa, how do they reach you?
They can reach me by phone or by email. My email address is Alan, A-L-A-N, at infinitesafariadventures.com, and you can find that on the web. You can call me at 818-508-1885. One of the other things that I would tell people, you've mentioned the book.
I encourage everybody to read your book, The Best African Safari, Tips from an Obsessive Planner. It's both available in print and on the internet.
Yes, in fact, you can download that book for free on my website. If you go to www.infinitesafariadventures.com, there's a place there where you can click and download a free copy of the book.
Thank you so very much for being my guest.
Thank you so much. And as I tell people, when you're ready, I'm ready. So whenever you're ready, Nancy, let's go.
Thank you. Ready to go. I have been speaking with Alan Feldstein, owner and founder of Infinite Safari Adventures. I'm Nancy Pearlman. Thank you very much for joining us, and do tune in again next week.
If you would like free information about these environmental issues, go to www.ecoprojects.org or call 310-559-9160. Environmental Directions with your host, Nancy Pearlman, is a community affairs program of the nonprofit organization Educational Communications and this station.